The
Feeling
Swifties
like
are
some
getting ready for the Chiefs game.
what?
Nothing. I don't even know. This got me because there's a.
You
I'm not
don't
gonna
know
get
what's
into
going
it.
on there?
I'm not gonna get
Oh,
into it.
yeah. With Taylor Swift and Travis Kelsey.
Yeah.
Who is Travis
I
Very
live in
Kelce, bro?
American.
Missouri. I'm a big KC fan, so we've been invaded by Swifties.
Bro,
Who is Travis Kelsey,
yes.
bro?
It's American stuff.
I see.
Very American. I'll say it's
Football.
more American.
Football, motherfucker.
Yeah, hand egg. Hand egg. Yeah.
Hendag. The only football I understand is the one you play in Brazil and Argentina.
The only football I understand is the one of World Cup champions. That's the only one I understand. I don't know about you to say. I don't know about
Oh,
you.
I had me a
The only one you guys know is
good times, bro.
the lesser football, bro. Sorry, bro.
Less.
AKA soccer.
Jesus.
Ah,
I'm making
That,
enemies today. I'm making
bro,
enemies today. That's
yeah.
bro,
fine.
bro.
You're for
Take
sure
care, bro.
making enemies. But yeah, we have a long brew today, so I think we should just get started. So welcome everyone to the Atlas Brew number 82. Today we will be talking. The main topic will be our econ report and some Sage Labs economy talk and stats. We will also have a. We will briefly touch on the open platforming that we did for dev tools to build on top of Sage Labs. So we also have that. But the main topic will be the Sage Labs economy and the econ report. So if you're new here, the Atlas Brew is our most beloved Star Atlas event. I can say that. It happens every week on Wednesdays at this time. So every Wednesday you can join uh, here the voice chat or the Atlas Amphitheater, depending on what type of brew it is. It's always at the same time. Uh, that said, I want to introduce first Jose. How are you, Jose?
Doing great, Santi. Super excited to learn about Chris' insights on the economic report and to hear about our other guest topic as well. I feel it's going to be super entertaining and super important for the people who looks forward to develop inside Star Atlas. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I'll not spoil the surprise. So
Yeah.
let's wait.
And Dominic Bain, how are you, friend?
I'm gonna keep the rambling short today. We have a couple of really good guests that I know everyone is super interested in hearing from. So I'm good. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that approach. I love that approach. So first, let's do some very quickly some noteworthy news. First, you know that Breakpoint 2023 is coming. Actually, less than a month until that happens, and we will be having a community meetup, an Atlas Brew meetup in there, and we prepared the forum. A massive shout out to Funcracker here for helping set this up, but we prepared the form to gauge interest in who is going to be in there, and so we can do some reservations. I don't know, Funcracker, if you're here and you want to add some context to it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So the thing here is we're trying to do something pretty cool, which is having a dinner cruise on a boat through the Amsterdam canals, and then followed by drinks and socializing in a venue in downtown Amsterdam. But it would be absolutely super helpful to know how many people are actually interested in this. We need to have some numbers before we are able to really finalize on well, deal sounds a bit too much, but yeah, you get what I mean. Yeah, to that end, please fill out the form. I will say again, dinner cruise is we're trying to get there, uh, not 100% guaranteed. I hope to hear that later this week, hopefully with also the use of some of the numbers that we can get a glimpse from this Google form. So yeah, stay tuned. There's a special channel which Shanti just shared, Breakpoint 2023. More inform. I will post more information in there for sure when I have it. But for now, please, it will be very helpful if you could fill out the form, and then we can hopefully finalize stuff on a short basis.
Yeah, thank you, man, for helping with this. And again, like this is just a community made and run event. Let's say it's not like a Star Atlas official event, but the people from the Star Atlas team who will be going to Breakpoint will be definitely attending this community meetup. So if you want to secure your spot at the boat trip and also at the other venue, please make sure to fill the form so we can gauge the interest in there. Um, Also, stay tuned to the Breakpoint 2023 channel, which is opened under the events category, so you can be updated on everything that is going on. But yeah, see you in there if you're going. It's
You
gonna be
going, Santi?
great. I don't know. I don't know. I hope. I hope. But there's gonna be people
Man.
from the Sir Atlas team for sure. So don't worry about that. Michael Wagner is going. I
Oh,
think
wow.
probably Jacob is going also, and I don't know. Miguel, also from our team, is going. And there's gonna be more people, I think, probably. So, and I'm sure they will be joining that event. I already made Miguel say that he will be joining, so Miguel is gonna be
Awesome.
joining for sure, and Michael absolutely as well. So make sure to fill the form, guys, if you're going. Cool. Let's keep moving here. Let's do this very quickly. Actually, we also released the Magic Eden cover for Act 2, Episode 2. You guys know that we had some small issues with that on on that end, so you can go and check that out now and buy it now. You have time until the 16th of October, so make sure to go purchase that now. Let's keep moving. We just released a Unibomba video. I think Dom will probably be posting that in the Atlas Brew channel, and it's looking really, really,
Bro, that
really good.
video, bro.
Yeah, so high quality, so high quality. I loved it. Gary, shout out to Gary and his team. They're crushing it with the vehicles at Star Atlas.
Yeah, man. And Eco's ships are super beautiful as well. I love the Unibomba.
Yeah, yeah. And you can first, I think you can see the bomb also in the Unibomb. I don't know if it's in that video or in the pictures. I don't remember now. But there
It's in
were
the
a
video,
couple.
yeah.
It's in the video. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can see the bomb that the Unibomber carries. So.
I wouldn't even be mad if the bomb dropped over my head watching such a beautiful ship.
Yeah, probably. I don't know about that, but yeah, maybe. Cool, cool, cool. Also, Chip from our team joined Metaverse Nomads, so you guys can check out that recording. And we'll also be having Chip in the joining us here in the next brew to chat about Sage Labs. So Chip is our director of game systems design, and I will also send the event in the Atlas Brew chat so you guys can mark that's interested in there, so you don't miss the next brew next
This
Wednesday.
episode was fire, by the way. Like, I highly recommend, if you ever watch just one Metaverse Nomads episode and you're interested in Sage, watch this one. It was really, really
Yeah.
good. Shipto dropped a lot of quote unquote alpha, and he said a lot of cool stuff. He gave a lot of
He got
insight into his
he really
decision
got into
making and
details.
everything. Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
good.
really
Yeah,
got
and
into
Shipto
details.
also ascended on the path of enlightenment in the Ustur orthodoxy. So congratulations, Ship. Another huge
He's
step
a
for you, bro.
learner now, right?
Yeah, the boy's a learner.
Love that. Love that. Tito has been leveling up. You need to join the Metaverse Nomads podcast to level up if you're an Uster, I see. So
Yeah,
make
helps a
sure to
lot.
tune in to the Metaverse Nomads. They are one of the most consistent content creators that we have in the Stratless community. So as always, big shout out to them. And also, we have the winning picture for Friends and Crew Week 1, and it looks really good as well. Some people are really talented, really, really talented. I see Dom shared it in the Atlas Brew chat if you guys want to check that out. It looks really good. I don't know what it has about friends and crew. It looks like a stranded crew member to me, but
Yeah,
looks
it
really
looks like
good.
crew. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I don't even know how he got this image. I'm gonna be
yeah.
honest. I have no idea how he did
Where did
this.
he take that picture? That's my biggest question here. I
It's a
don't
really good
know.
one though.
But yeah, great picture. And if you guys want to participate, you just need to go to the showroom, take a picture, and from your gallery, you can directly post it to the photography channel that we have here in the Discord, and you guys can also go and vote for all the different pictures that there are in that channel. So if you scroll up to the top of the server, you will see the photography channel, and you can go in there and vote for your favorite ones, and you will help the creators. Cool. I think though that's all on the noteworthy news. I don't know, Dom, just say if I'm missing anything.
I
No,
think
man,
you got
that's
everything.
should be it.
Cool, 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 cool. So I think now let's move to Brett. Brett, I just gave you priority speaker, so you don't need to use push to talk. You can leave and rejoin if it's not working for you. Let's see if you can.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Great.
There we go.
Come on, man.
Great.
Brett's a super genius.
He wins even against Discord bros. That's not easy.
Not easy, not an easy task. But yeah, Brett, we wanted to have you here because we just released something very important yesterday, which is the open platforming for dev tools and documentation. So we just wanted to have some more details on this, just talking to the developers out here that are in the Brew and just in the community in general. What did we just release very briefly?
Yeah. So we pretty much released everything that we use on in our systems to connect to the blockchain. So we open that up. It's all up on npm. You can import it and play around with it. Plug up the same way we do to the blockchain. It's not Starcom. Starcom uses this in the backend to do its connection and distribute all the data to users, but you could use these directly as well and deploy it to your websites, do whatever. So there's a lot of very cool stuff in there that people will definitely find. And they'll see how much stuff there actually is in Sage with hundreds of instructions and all of that.
Nice. So yeah, guys, if you are a dev or you have developers in your guild or friends, make sure to share this with them. And also, Brett, a follow-up question: what can people build using it? Like, what can be built on top of labs using it?
There's a lot of stuff. So some examples. So
Couple
one of
examples.
the one of the libraries we released is something we call data source, and what that is really just like abstraction on where data is coming from, whether it's coming from RPC or some other location, such as our partners with Hello Moon. And so we don't have to build like two separate implementations of everything. And then there's a whole bunch of other functions in there that just help building Solana transactions out. Like one of them that we really loved is the dynamic functions that allow you to just put all the instructions you want. It'll automatically figure out how to organize your instructions into transactions and sign them all with one click by users. So if you've noticed in Sage, sometimes when you click, it does like 3, 4, or 5 transactions. That's the same method we use in there. Yep. A couple other things we released. So player profile, the bindings for that are fully up. Everything is there. Sage has only not used player profile because of front end just development limitations. Like we just haven't gone as far as we could. We're going further right now, but the bindings that we released, everything is open on player profile, so you can start adding sub accounts and all of that if you want. We've also released all the Atlas Prime stuff, so third-party apps can start using Atlas Prime as much as they want to as well. So you plug that in, it's got the same kind of functions from data source and it just it gets all the Atlas and uses our Atlas service to convert to Sol for them. And so now websites, any third-party websites can use Atlas as their primary fee payment mechanism. And then, of course, we release Sage, which is everything you would need to build your own front end or any experiences you want to build on top. So whatever you can come up with, I can't even think of all the possibilities there. So I'm really excited to
Nice.
see it.
Nice. That's awesome. So if you guys have any questions about how to use it and want answers from our engineers, you feel free to post on the community builders channel, which is in the build IP and tools category. If you scroll down here in the server, there's a community builders channel where you can ask all community developers, channel, where you can ask all the questions that you have when trying to use it. And we'll be just tagging Brett probably.
Yeah, I watched that channel too, so it's a very good one.
Nice. Great. And maybe if there's a lot of interest, we could also organize this small event where people can ask questions live to you as well, like just for developers. I'm just
Love that.
making you commit to it live here.
I'm in.
So,
Let's do it.
nice. That's great. All right, Brett. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you joining.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Brett.
happy to.
Yeah.
Thank you, friend.
Cool. So there you have it. We have Brett, absolute legend. He joins the Bruce Town Halls, and we'll just keep inviting him to everything that we have going on pretty much at this point because we love Brett.
Yeah, he's super cool, man. Everyone loves Brett.
Yeah, legend. But now I think we can talk a little bit about the economy here at Star Atlas, and we'll have two very special guests. Oh no, just say if you prepared the intro song. I don't know about that. If you actually did that,
Bro.
or if you were just
Where is
talking about
Arthur?
it.
Arthur, do you have the intro song ready, bro?
Did you coordinate with Arthur, or are you just putting him on the
I
spot
can't
right
believe
now,
you
bro?
coordinated this, bro.
Bro, I tagged him on the chat, bro.
I think you're
bro.
putting him on the spot. Yeah, but well,
But
we
yeah,
have
we'll make it without the intro song.
we'll make it
Maybe at
without the
the
intro
end.
song.
Maybe at the end.
Welcome, economics team. There you go.
There you
I
go.
got you.
There you go.
I do what I can out here, man.
I don't know about that, but yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it.
Oh Jesus.
There are
Okay.
face palms in the chat right now.
Yeah. Jesus. Okay.
But yeah, we have two very special guests today. First, let's welcome Chris. How are you, Chris? A friend of the house.
Doing well. I'm fighting off a sneeze right now. So at any moment I could just I could blank out. But yeah, super excited. Sage economy. It's finally happened. So we've been buried in data for the last 2.5 weeks.
And
That's
nothing
awesome.
exploded, which is awesome as well.
Not yet. No, everything seems to be okay so far.
I like the not yet answer. Yeah. And we also have Gareth here from our econ team. Gareth, let's see if we can hear you.
Yep. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Gareth.
How are you, man?
Good. Appreciate the warm welcome. It's my first time up here, but excited to dive into the report and talk a lot about Sage, hear your guys' questions, and yeah, just have a fun time.
Yeah,
That's
man.
awesome,
It's
bro.
super cool to have you here on stage, man. And welcome. We know you are also a follower of the Atlas Brew. We see you here sometimes. So
Gareth
yeah,
is always in the
it's-
shadows. He's always watching. He never responds or like talks out there, but he's there. He's always watching.
Bro,
he has
he's
been
the
putting
feds
some
of Gaia, bro. He can't speak.
yeah
Too much power.
real groundwork on the econ report by Gareth from what I heard. So yeah, great job with that one, Gareth, man. Great job. If
Thank
you
you.
guys
Yeah, that was
didn't read
a.
it, yeah,
No, I was gonna say, yeah, that was a team effort. But yeah, super happy with how it turned out. We'll talk about it a bit more later.
great. Let's get into it. So if you guys didn't read it, you can go and check it out at the link that I sent in the Atlas Brew chat. You can find it at the very top, Star Atlas Economic Report 2023, quarter 3. And we'll be talking very briefly about it. I wouldn't say briefly. We can get into any amount of detail that the community wants here. But just to get started here with the econ report, just want to ask a kind of like a wide question, but what did you guys tackle in it?
Gareth, you can get more specific, but I did want to give kind of an overview of the report, especially in kind of this new era. So the report, we tried to take it in a slightly different direction this time to try to make it more accessible to the general reader. So I think oftentimes people have read the report in the past and felt like it's a little bit out of their depth and maybe a little bit too technical. So we're really happy with some of the feedback we've gotten thus far in terms of the accessibility. So go take a read, take a look at it, see if you agree with that sentiment. Because yeah, I mean, I think so far our engagement with the report has been really, really good relative to previous reports. So we're excited to try and take that momentum forward. But in terms of the report itself and kind of the theme, that was mostly Gareth's brainchild. So I've been really excited to kind of have Gareth lead this entire effort. So he was working tirelessly while I was more on the Sage side of things. He was working on this report, making sure that everything was. Just the amount of work that he did to get this report together over the past quarter, especially with kind of a limited time that we did have. Especially integrating Sage Labs, it was just really awesome. So, with that, I'll pass it over to Gareth, so he can kind of give you guys what is the theme of the report and maybe some broad strokes.
Thanks, Chris. Well, we start off by talking about the pre-Sage Labs period. I'm mostly broken out by faction, so. Our first section, Dawn of Prosperity, covers a lot of the broader metrics that sort of defined the quarter. That's where you'll find sort of the hints to the conclusion, or the starting hints to the conclusion that we talk about later. That leads nicely, into the spending per faction. Then we dive into commodity prices, the Star Atlas census, and the production market that quite heavily dominated the activity throughout the quarter. Brief section on Sage Labs. I'm sure we'll expand on that later in the brew here. But some general takeaways and ideas we wanted to portray in this report is that the economy is expanding, and with that comes easily identifiable winners and losers, at least within a per program basis. So the reason we broke it out by faction is because you can clearly see where the strengths and weaknesses are. So I know we'll talk about that faction specific stuff in coming up here, but you gain some really valuable insights into decisions you as a player have made and how that has contributed to where your faction has sort of positioned themselves. And on top of that faction-specific insight, you also get, okay, how is this faction-specific data correlated to the broader commodity markets, the production economy, and the increasing yields and use cases of producing assets. One cool thing I did want to note is sort of the wealth metrics we came across. This is sort of independent of our broader conclusion, but it does lie the underlying foundation. On page 8, you'll get some insight into how the faction wealth has sort of defined the faction-specific winners and losers. So right now, Sage Labs and Faction Fleet kind of prevent any sort of skill-based accumulation of wealth. It's really correlated to who has the most real world wealth and how they attribute that or allocate that to our ecosystem programs. That is subject to change in the future as skill becomes more of a dominant factor when it comes to economic involvement. But right now you can really see the correlation between give some alpha between mud wealth and their success throughout the quarter. So hopefully that gives you guys some insight and incentivize you to go download the report. But yeah, we talk about quite a lot in there, and we keep some of the legacy stuff that you guys are familiar with, such as the census, which did see growth throughout the last quarter as well. So overall some super cool stuff, and I hope you guys go take a read who haven't already.
I'm going a little rogue here, Gareth, with this question, but do we have a clear faction who's winning in this quarter?
So it becomes pretty obvious pretty quickly that the Mud faction is the quarter's winner, simply because they've managed to essentially cement themselves in the production economy and really take advantage of the driving commodity markets and increase in activity in that space. With that being said, again, it is tied to the overall wealth of the Mud faction and just their overall engagement as a player base. So it's
Yeah,
that could be taken away very quickly over time as new gameplay dynamics come
I'll
into
need
play here.
I'll need to correct you right now, Gareth, because I mean, Mud also has the biggest inequality within their factions, right? And Oni are the poorest. So if you want to have a better life, the best one's the Woosters. Is that correct?
Well, we can move on to the
Uh,
next question now.
No. I actually would push back on Garrett's analysis there. I would actually say um, the Mud faction, while it is the wealthiest, is not necessarily the best. So if you look at like output per capita, so you have daily percentage of active producers by faction, that's relatively equal across all factions. And then you also, I don't know if it actually made it into this report, but we also had a production per capita rate, and that was also very similar across the different factions. And then, as Jose was just saying, the disparity, the wealth disparity, or the income inequality in the Mud faction is the greatest among all factions. So, in terms of like what would life be like within each of these factions, I think it's kind of like comparing apples and oranges for a slightly, because the quality of life, if you're living in one Europe, I think Europe is a really great example of this. Like you could take a very rich country like Germany, and a country that is not as rich as Germany, like Poland. Within that country, when you're living there, it's actually pretty, like, the quality of life is very similar between the two countries, even though one is wealthier in aggregate. So I don't know if it's as clear cut which faction is kind of the best to live in, and which one is best coordinated. But in terms of like a per unit, per person measurement, I think they're all pretty similar. We did see the Oni with the lowest income inequality, I believe, or wealth inequality. I can't remember if that was Oni or Ooster. Yeah, it was Oni with the lowest wealth inequality.
I still personally believe that on aggregate, it is, the Mud deserve a win here, despite their wealth inequality. I think their ability to get their members together and recruit new members and just have a larger player base overall has earned them this victory. And I'm not even Mud, I'm Oni, so but I gotta recognize the aggregate figures here.
Nice. Fine, we'll fight about it later off camera.
Yeah, this is a debate I can get behind, but let's move on. Sorry about that. The actual question that I wanted to ask is, so the report touches on the deactivation of the infinite supply of R4. How is this transition going in your guys' mind right now? And any insight you can share, especially with the addition of Sage Labs.
So I'll give my 2 cents. I think probably the most marked fact or statistic over the period has been the increase in R4 price, for sure. And I think it's easy to look at that and go, oh man, R4 prices are up, which means ship yields are down. Now, we did a lot of exploration in terms of actual yield, and actual production and consumption of R4 within the economy. And when I say actual, I mean kind of from an individual's level. So you could look at the aggregate production and aggregate consumption of R4 across the entire economy, and it actually started to reach a parity. So it was pretty much 1-to-1 for a while. I haven't looked at it since Sage released. Obviously, we've been super busy, but that tells me, oh, okay, in aggregate, we've got enough. And that was kind of the goal of the macro plan when we did the R4 transition. But what we found was that within individuals, so if we were to take those numbers and just sum them across everybody, it comes out as 1-to-1. But if we were to go within each individual, have a big giant data set of their production to their consumption, and take the average of that, it actually looks a lot different. So there's a lot of people, or compare the average to the median. So we're basically looking at the distribution of production to consumption. There's a lot of people in this group that is basically way, way, way overproducing. And then there's a big giant group of people that are way, way, way underproducing. So you have basically these net consumers and net producers, and this was something that actually almost got into the report, but ultimately we decided against including it. It got a little bit convoluted and confusing. But what I have kind of myself noticed is that we have these people who took the opportunity with claim stakes and saw really, really powerful, strong kind of R4 production capabilities with, coupled with the increase in R4 prices. They were seeing very, very strong value in those assets that they had purchased. And then there were people who just had the ships and they were maybe getting less value than they had before. So I think when you look at it from an individual perspective, it becomes a much more complex picture than when you look at it from the top down, and it explains why prices went up. Because you might look at the production and consumption and say, well, what the hell? The economy is producing exactly as much as it needs. Why are the prices up? Well, it's because there's actually a lot of inequality. There's a huge disparity in the ownership of those assets, and that is what fuels a market. A market's not fueled by summing over top the entire thing. It's fueled by the individuals and their personal optimization. So one person might have 3 times as much of a resource that they need, and there are 2 other people who don't have any of it. So there's a bunch of transactions that occur on the marketplace, and because that person has that market power, that causes prices to go up. So that's kind of my overview of the situation. I think that the activation of Sage Labs has basically made R4 and R4 prices a moot point. In my view, there's, if you're complaining about R4 prices at this stage, you need to get into Sage Labs. That's all I can tell you.
Like that. Gareth, do you have any comments on it? Putting you on the spot here as well.
I mean, it's R4 prices, just the market in general has been one of the strongest, we've seen in Star Atlas's history, especially, given the nature to which we transitioned over to the full player base, or player-driven R4 economy. As of right now, you'll probably see some figures later. I know Chris has some prepared. Sorry, Chris, for spoiling the surprise, but yeah, you'll see a lot of the resource activity is really diverse, and some stats, you'll think from a game economy like, oh my god, that's insane, how come there's these huge surpluses? But as Chris said, each player has their own path and own plan. Someone might be hoarding R4 in speculation that these prices may increase. Someone might not want anything to do with R4 and is just participating in Sage Labs crafting. There's all these dynamics. Right now, those dynamics are in favor of price appreciation. But just like any market, prices fluctuate, and it's just been incredible to see how strong this upward trend has been, despite all of the different changes to our ecosystem. So I'd agree with Chris. Our R4 prices are definitely sort of a highlight figure for us, and hopefully the rest of the resources will kind of join in that trend. But we'll see as the Sage Labs economy progresses.
Yeah, I think this is actually like a great segue into some labs conversation. So from what I hear and from what you guys have been sharing also internally, it looks like people are actually moving from score to labs, right?
Yeah. In larger proportion than we kind of anticipated. I would say it's like 25 to 35% outside of our. It's hard to like quantify, but within kind of like the distribution of expected outcomes, it's kind of you could think of it as like being a standard deviation away from the mean, which means it was relatively unlikely. So basically, the movement from Score to Sage has been larger and more swift than we kind of expected or modeled, and that a lot of that was based off of escape velocity. So, which is, I mean, this is fantastic, right? It means people are willing to pay Sage, and there's a lot that can tell us about the future of Score.
Nice.
Some insight on that as well, just super briefly. We actually looked into this today just to get some super rough numbers. Chris is right. There's quite a massive transition. We also have all of these fleets in Score that have become inactive. What all that means is, they've stopped refueling their ships, but the ships are still, staked in the program. With that, and that's a massive number. We have, hundreds of thousands of ships just dormant, right? But one of the beautiful things about Sage is we're seeing this constant trickle of not just these ships, active fleets as well, but a small portion of these ships, coming back up to life and re-entering the labor force. And yeah, it's just been super cool to see. I know as we optimize and add new features and expand on the fidelity, that number is just that rate of transfer is just going to increase dramatically. So super excited on that front.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, we've seen, I would argue, the largest shift in the smaller ships. So we have seen pretty much a 1-to-1 movement from Score to Sage in terms of ships that are moving from Score to Sage, but that is not the case for extra small ships, for example. So what has left Score does not match up with what has come into Sage, which means that there were a lot of dormant, like Gareth was saying, a lot of dormant ships, a lot of small ships that were just sitting around that have become activated in Sage, which is really cool because one of the things we want from Sage, from a player-driven economy, is for those smaller players to start to, and those smaller ships to start to play a bigger role. And the fact that this is clearly a much more attractive offering than Score for those players, either through like engaging fun gameplay and a puzzle to solve, or through the economic game. Players are coming to the types of players we wanted to kind of feel like they had a place, do feel that way, and we're seeing that in quite a stunning way, I would argue, in terms of the number of ships that we're seeing in Sage.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I also wanted to ask you guys if you have like any other stats that you may feel like sharing, or cool things that you saw happening besides this, just putting you on the spot a little bit. Oh, I see your screen sharing.
All right, so this is the R4 economy in Sage. Don't mind toolkits. Toolkits is a bit uninformed at this stage. Toolkit burn is super low in Sage anyway, but this is the production and consumption of each of the R4. Production positive, consumption negative, and you could see that for fuel, food, and ammo, we're all running a deficit on each one of those. So people need to start producing more of those assets. So it's kind of crazy to think about the fact that like people there's clearly something here, right? If you're looking at the R4 market and you're saying, hey, there's not a lot of R4 being produced, and hey, it looks like there's a deficit, and hey, people still need R4 for Score. Like, I think this is really cool to see. That people are just so greedy with their behavior. They're like, I just want to play. I don't want to mine for stupid R4. So I want to go get the cool stuff like golden tickets. I want to go craft particle accelerators. I don't want to craft hydrogen or fuel. So that's kind of one interesting one. Let's see if there's anything else. I have some curated stuff. So don't mind this blip here, but this is the cumulative and hourly golden ticket production in Sage. And you can obviously see last time I ran this, we're hitting just over 160,000 golden tickets. And that's after, how long have we been running? For a week and a half or so. So I'm not 100% sure on the exact date of when the first golden ticket drawing will be, but this is potentially super valuable information for people. Let's see what else we have. This is the daily redemptions. So this is the redemptions of ship assets or not golden tickets necessarily. And you can see we've had quite the ramp up. And very interestingly, if you look at this golden ticket, there was a pretty huge acceleration when we were in the like 80,000 golden tickets, cumulative golden tickets phase around September 30th, where people were just producing them like crazy. And you can see that has almost stalled out on October 4th or October 3rd, where there was very little production, and people started producing, instead of golden tickets, they started producing ships. So you can see kind of the huge increase in thimble air bikes being constructed, among other things, which is really cool to see. And then here's kind of just the aggregate production of each of those redeemed assets. You can see a thimble butch was crafted last night. Yeah, it's pretty exciting to see how things are moving. One final little fact I wanted to show you guys is this this cumulative R9 curve. So this is showing basically the amount of R9 that's not being burnt in recipes. So this is after it's been produced, we net out everything that's been used in a recipe, and you can see for most everything it's just under, maybe it's like just about, it's around that half a billion point. So there's quite a bit of these resources sitting in people's coffers. Very little of some of those smaller things like biomass. You'll see there's a tiny amount. Arco, there's a tiny amount for different reasons. But you'll see people are accumulating a lot of carbon and hydrogen. The hydrogen, because, well, hydrogen is in the starting area, so that makes sense. The carbon, well, carbon is one of the most popular items in the game. It's used in a lot of different recipes, so it makes sense that people are proportionally kind of accumulating these things in their little piggy banks. Now, an interesting analysis and something that we're interested in doing is just trying to figure out, okay, how much of this is going in the marketplace, how much of this is going, into Starbases, how much is being transferred into a wallet, et cetera, et cetera. So probably giving away way too much information, so I'll stop that. But yeah, kind of cool. I mean, that is a tiny glimpse at the amount of data that we're ingesting and the different visualizations and analysis that we're doing. But yeah, super excited.
Yeah, man, that is very cool. I'm sure the community is loving all that data, and they are probably writing it all down as well. All with
Yeah, I
notebooks
imagine those were all screenshotted, but it should be fine.
Absolutely.
Gareth, do you have anything cool you want to share? I don't know. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you have any, those are like my facts, my Sage facts.
That's what we do, Chris. Don't worry, you're allowed.
I mean, I can share some. I don't have any immediate figures open at the moment. I could pull some up, but some more, I guess, insight. In the report, you'll see a lot of stats that are that were cut off essentially. I believe on the 20th it was, or sorry, no, the 25th. Just a few days after Sage Labs launched. Just the other day, or sorry, on the report, we recorded around 1.38 million transactions since launch in the first 4 days. I believe yesterday we just hit over a million transactions in 1 day. So that number has absolutely skyrocketed in terms of the activity on a daily basis. Profiles are, were recorded by the report at 5,300. Those are, I believe, over 20,000 now. So as a whole, Sage Labs is really on the uptrend here across the board. And yeah, I'm trying to see if I can pull up some cool figures here. Why don't you go on without me, and if at the end, if there's time, I'll see if I can share my screen quickly. But no stress here. If not.
No problem. May I go rogue and put Chris and Gareth on the spot as well, Santi?
Yeah, bro, that's what we do.
Awesome.
If people aren't
Guys,
saying in their mind like, dude, screw this guy, then are we even here?
what
Like,
are we even doing, right? Guys, let's talk about the future now. This is not financial advice, and this is not a promise that whatever I'm talking about is going to make into the game. But when I look to the future of Star Atlas, I see things like storage capacities, like we need to have huge buildings to hold all the cargo that right now it's limitless. I see local marketplaces where players will be able to trade things like resources. There will be player to player trading, so people will be fighting resources for others, etc. I see that acquiring resources will be harder because you need to control territory. You need to, maybe there will be skill gating on what kind of resources you can mine right away or whatnot. And we'll have combat, we'll have lots of other things that add complexity to the game. And what I want to hear from you guys is what makes you guys most excited about the future of Star Atlas economy? Like, what's the thing that you want to see when you want to see implemented and might make you, gives you the fright of God, what's going to happen when we add this kind of thing to Sage Labs or to Star Atlas?
Gareth, I'll let you answer. I was talking a lot in the last section, so I want to hear what you
Okay.
say, and then I'll give mine.
Yeah, no, I was ready. I was wondering if you were going to go first or not, but yeah, I'm 1,000% back the statement that combat will be sort of the break point for us. And by break point, I mean we have no idea what's going to take place in that respect. I'm a huge lover and player of combat based games. I love strategic games as much as the next person. Spreadsheet games. The way we've designed Sage Labs has been super fun and intuitive, just given the scope at which we've promised at this point. But adding combat, especially down the line in UE5 and how you'll be able to use your the geography of your surroundings and skills of which you've refined over time and the different ship metas. That'll be amazing. But in terms of Sage Labs, adding that base combat and ship config, I think is going to really shift the dynamic of the economy, because now we've erased what I've said previously, which is wealth sort of determines or essentially prophesizes your future success. Now that wealth can be stripped away from you in a lot of cases and can be taken by a lesser faction who's tired of being I guess shadowed by mud, for example, and wants to fight back. So they invest in combat ships, they get militia together, and they target mud supply lines. So stuff like that we just can't predict. We can measure firepower. We can say, okay, in a 1v1 war, who would win if everyone came with the ships that we can see in their wallets. But in terms of dynamic, day-to-day zones of combat and I guess missions, you could call them, to disrupt enemy or even backstab alliances, or however people decide to play. That's going to be a huge shift in how we see this economy play out over time. Because one last point, right now everything is almost it's predictable. We can see, okay, there's a lot of ships that are mining right now. There's a lot of ships, freighting right now. There's a lot of ships docked and crafting and all that kind of stuff. We can kind of get a good idea as to what comes next. But with combat, that's completely that's a completely different situation. So I'll let you take the stage, Chris. But for me, it's definitely combat.
Yeah, I think combat is also mine. But with respect to kind of like the static nature, or I guess the deterministic nature of labs as it is, obviously, like, we're very excited for the changes that are going to come and the updates to labs that we're going to make, or at least the updates to Sage. Different features are going to make the whole entire game much more, hopefully more interesting and complex, but also a little bit more cooperative and a little bit more competitive. Right now, what's lacking is kind of that competitiveness. Competitiveness is what drives value. I mean, that is, you could sum up all of markets, all of market theory, all of all of microeconomics, all of economics, in that statement, at least neoclassical capitalist economics, is that competition produces value. So we need more competition. We need more competitiveness. We need programs that are going to integrate competitiveness into our market. So obviously combat is like the number one thing there, but there are a lot of faction specific, or I guess like faction competitions we can run. There's almost just kind of a like, hey, we're the biggest, we're the best. That adds competition. So I'm excited for the features that we're going to add, and how just already the economy is very complex and the game is very complex, and there's actually a bunch of different things we can do to shake the economy up. without giving too much information, there are locations, there are recipes, there are ways that things work right now that we could very simply, easily change to make for a more engaging, exciting experience. And so I'm excited for the big feature updates in Sage, but I'm also excited for kind of to like essentially have a live economy that we can mess with, not just with the levers. The levers are for balancing. The levers are to make sure that nothing's broken. I mean, with like, you know, uh, how things work. I always joke that I want to have like random sectors that blow ships up. I don't think I'm ever going to get that feature to go through, but that's that's the extreme example of what I'm talking about. Trying to add some excitement, add variety, and add randomness to a game that seemingly doesn't have it, but it actually does. So
Yeah,
I guess
Oh,
that's not really a
man.
feature.
that's
Man.
important for games. I don't know if that's as extreme as just trying to kill some enlightened oosters, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, man, Chris, you are speaking my dream here now, bro. Like if we can have RNG events like Jarvik attacks and things like that, or random environmental anomalies that make your ships go faster or go slower and things like that. I think everyone in the chat will agree with me that this is going to make the game a lot more fun, even if you get wrecked.
Yeah, I mean, it's really mind-boggling. It's been amazing to watch just how quickly, once you've got the actual like MVP, which I would argue Labs is kind of the MVP, especially in the economic terms. But once we had that out, it's so much easier to iterate and advance and to add features. I really like, since Jose was just talking, I thought adding the additional lore feature into each sector was super cool. So now when you travel to a location, there's like a third or fourth reason you might go there, and it's to read the lore. And that's an example of a feature that probably took like, I don't know, a couple hours to integrate. From the technical side, obviously took more than a couple minutes for Jose to write all that. But that's an example of, in my opinion, a feature that adds a whole new layer, a whole new complexity to the game. And this is more of a game design comment than a game economy comment, but the game economy ultimately it feeds off of the game design. Without a good game, there's no game economy. And so, I think that's a really great example of an awesome feature that was pretty low touch, pretty easy to implement, and had a big impact on the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Guys, how do you feel about doing some community questions? Should we
I'm
go
down.
for it?
Let's do it.
Cool. Let's see if anyone wants to unmute to ask a question. Please feel free. Gareth, Chris, if you can't answer that question, just feel free to say we can't answer this. That's completely fair.
Sounds good.
So yeah, if anyone has any questions, mics are open for the guys. If not, if you don't want to speak, feel free to type it in the chat, and we will read it out loud. But yeah, let's see. I see people typing. People are shy to speak.
Yeah, no, I know Grist had a question. I'd have to find it though. Oh, I think he's typing actually.
Yeah, he's typing. Let's see. Typing fast.
No pressure.
Chris is asking if you, Chris, have already modeled what happens when combat arrives, but I think you touched on it a little bit, or what do you think it will happen? I think you touched on it a little bit, but feel free to add any extra context.
Yeah, it's a pretty broad question. I think he's asking like, if you were to run like a mega simulation of the economy, what does it look like when you add in combat? And I'll probably just take this opportunity to say, so first of all, while I will do some simulations, this is one of those things where like it's much more. I could spend days or years running sophisticated fancy simulations, and they're never going to do anywhere near as good as like 1 day of data collection. So we had escape velocity, which was really, really, really helpful in informing our decisions about Sage Labs. And now we've got Sage Labs, which is going to be super, super, super helpful in informing our decisions about combat or rec. So I guess like, yeah, I'll run some simulations. We've obviously done like, especially on the game design side, like, I don't know, comparative. I don't know if you would call it simulations. It's not really simulations. It's more like here's a fleet. What happens when they fight? But in terms of like an economic simulation, the reality is the way these things work is the impact on the economy is the proportion of time that a player will spend of their day on that activity. So it's like a labor market. And labor economics, you have H, which is the total hours in the day, and you have L, which is the time that the player commits to a specific act. And H minus L is leisure time, and leisure time is like this whole other thing. So in our economy, we'll have H, which is the total number of hours they play. We'll have L, which is the time that they spend fighting, and then we'll have maybe C, which is the time they spend crowd. So we have all these different activities that they can participate in, and the big important thing is that the outcome is very, very heavily dependent on the proportion of time the players spend on a particular activity. Now, the cool thing is, in terms of modeling this kind of stuff, is that it's typically linear. It's like if I spend 20% more time doing combat, then there's going to be 20% more explosions. So typically, it's kind of like a very predictable outcome. So it's not like there's any super crazy unknowns. But I completely forgot where I was going with this. Something to do with modeling. But basically, like from my point of view, adding in combat is really just going to make those decisions much more difficult for players. So now it's not really a question of like, okay, there's not really a whole lot of questions right now. It's like, okay, do I want to craft or do I want to go out and mine? Do I want to go out and mine or do I want to scan for SDUs? Now it's going to be, do I want to go out and combat or do I want to go out and do this thing that risks getting blown up? So I know that didn't really answer the question. It's something that we're thinking about, but it's definitely not something I'm going to spend a lot of time like running simulations about. It's just not worth it. Once we see what actually happens, that's what we'll get. Take Magic the Gathering, for example. They play test and they have very sophisticated individuals and like people that are able to play test the cards. But at the end of the day, there's no way you're going to catch some sort of meta because it's a completely different game when you have like a million individual agents optimizing. So I would say like it's gonna be more of a wait and see. Like we'll balance everything. Like we're gonna know what's going on, but I'm just excited to see what how our goal is to optimize how much combat impacts the economy. So we wanted to shake things up. We don't want it to necessarily shake things up too much. If the game is far too violent, then it's going to end up with people churning because nobody wants to play a game that's super violent. If the game's not violent enough, then combat didn't really have a big impact. So that's kind of the big variable we're going to be balancing there. Is like, okay, how violent do we want things? How risky do we want things?
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. And going to your point, Chris, like also modeling in testing and modeling in like and just going live in a real life economy like we have here must be even more difficult. It just adds more variables to everything. So
in a way, but in another way, like it actually makes things easier. So for example, in the next iteration of Sage, when we add in loyalty points or experience points or Atlas earnings, all these different things, or star-based construction and upgrading, for example. Like these are all examples of gameplay mechanics that my job has actually become a million times easier now that I know what player behavior looks like. I can use that when making decisions. And kind of running these basic simulations to say, okay, here's what this looks like. So that's I would say it's actually even better in our to help our decision making.
Nice, nice. Let's see if we have more questions. I see Space Bull asking. I don't know if this question is for you or maybe we save it for next week with Chip. But he says, when combat arrives, will fighters also no longer be able to mine?
When combat arrives, will fighters no longer be able to mine? Yeah, definitely, probably a Chip question. Once we get to that stage, we'll probably apply some sort of a. Actually, I think fighters already get a massive nerf to their productive capabilities, but I would imagine that we would try to offset that, right? Because right now, like, while fighters are worse than miners at in labs, we if we were to keep fighters at their current level, let's say they're 50% worse than miners. I'm not sure if that's the number, but and then we jump into combat, and fighters are basically 100% better than, well, they're infinitely better than miners, because miners don't actually have any combat capabilities. Now we've kind of got fighters, so they're over leveled. So that'll all, in terms of the timing, I'm not sure, but eventually, when the whole entire game is put together, the classes between classes will be balanced, so that fighters aren't objectively better than miners. So if that means giving fighters an appropriate nerf, or basically disallowing them to mine at all, that's what we'll do.
Cool. I see. Let me check the chat. I saw a couple more questions. I see one from Brian asking if you think that the behavior will change when we onboard more people that are not so knowledgeable in Star Atlas, let's say.
Yeah. So the personalities of the players that are in our game right now, these are our most enthusiastic players that we'll ever have, probably. They're kind of our golden demographic, or our golden cohort. And as we move over time, we will get more and more people from different types of cohorts, and those people will be probably more casual, or lower willingness to spend on the game. So maybe they're like, well, I've got like $10, I'll buy a extra small and some ammo. So yeah, I definitely anticipate, like, as we move into time, this is going to sound bad, but like, in an economic terms, the quality of the individuals entering will kind of probably deteriorate over time, or become lower. And when I say quality, I just mean like, as in terms of like participants in the economy. They'll probably have lower willingness to spend, higher churn rates, lower retention, and lower spending habits. So just kind of like those like typical game economy monetization metrics that we care about.
Cool. Let's see if there are more questions. Gaston is saying, you're just trying to say we're awesome. We understand. I agree with that.
Yep.
I agree with that. We're actually over the hour. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time, so I think it's a good moment to maybe close here. But really appreciate you, Chris and Gareth, coming to this brew, and we'll definitely invite you to a new one probably next month, so we check how everything is evolving with labs and where our economy is going and where it is.
Sweet. Yeah, we'd be happy to.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
guys. It was a lot of
Chris,
fun.
Thank you so much for joining, and I'll do a shameless plug for Chris here. But Chris probably will be on the Metaverse Nomads this Sunday if you guys watch the Metaverse Nomads. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And also, just a reminder: if anyone here is going to Breakpoint, make sure to fill in the form that I just sent on the Atlas Brew chat, just so we make sure to book your place at the community meetup, the Atlas Brew meetup. So if you're going to Breakpoint, please make sure to fill that form, so we can save your place in there. But other than that, I don't think I have anything else to share. and we'll see you in the next brew. Actually, let me share really quickly in the Atlas Brew chat the event for you guys to mark us interested for the brew next week with Chipto, absolute legend as well. And we'll be talking about Sage Labs and game design, and we'll be also having community questions. It's going to be a really interesting one as well. And well, nothing else to say on my end. Jose, before we close, anything you want to share?
Oh man, I have so many questions to ask Chris, but I guess I'll do that on private because otherwise the brew never ends. So thank you guys for coming, Gareth and Chris. It was awesome to have you guys here talk about Sage Labs and the future of the economy. And thank you everyone for coming to the brew.
All right, guys. We'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you
everyone.
guys.
Yeah, folks.
See ya.
Bye bye.